Yeah, we in the building, y'all. Just giving you a chance to get your watch party started. Mi Gente My People, we in the house. Yeah, we see you, Carmen. You in the building. Got you. We're just getting set up. We ready to roll in a minute. Hey. It's about that time to hit the button, y'all.
My people, this is
Mi
Manny
gente.
and Claudia back at it again. Rock Logic, we
Yeah.
appreciate it. Week show 3. I think last week we played the mayoral
Absolutely. The mayorals, we need them to vote. We need them to vote. It's a lot going on with that. We have Carmen Quinones running for city council in District 7. Y'all get out there and sign them petitions, y'all.
We in the building? We in the building.
Absolutely.
All right,
We
sure.
in the building.
All right, so we're going to talk about some stuff. I'm going to stop it early. Word up. So we're going to welcome you to another week of Mi Gente My People. I had to get that right. Chloe was killing me because I was like, Mi Gente My People. She said, no, it's my people. I was like, okay, cool, we got that. So it's another week. Last week, we did something kind of special, which I thought was dope. And that was that mayoral debate that we streamed uptown on 104th Street.
Yeah,
the debate, the forum with the, what was it, like 25 candidates?
Yeah.
We restreamed it last week, and we played it in its entirety, the whole 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? And it got we got a great response, by the way. It picked up like another like 600 or 700 views. You know what I'm saying? The people actually watching that, so that was dope. You know what I'm saying?
That
Wepa.
Manny,
yes, sir.
what has your week been like, and what is going on, brother?
Oh well, you know, just getting ready for this show, and also getting ready for some conversations that we need to have. Some important conversations. There's a lot of things that's happening with NYCHA, a lot of progress that they're making, and some progress that we need to make, some grounds that we need to cover. Right, it's time for us to really challenge this new circumstance that we're in. ¿Verdad? Tenemos que, nosotros estamos en una circunstancia bien nuevo, bien diferente. Yo sé que mucha gente dice, esto es lo mismo que nosotros enduramos antes, pero no, este es un poco más diferente, esto es un poco más fuerte. Ellos están ahora yendo para la propiedad completo. They're trying to come for it and take everything away, and so we have to prep for that. Outside of just, representing South Jamaica houses as well and taking care of some of those key issues and key mismanagement issues. But, happy to be here this week here. We're going to have a dynamic show. And I thank everybody for viewing. Claudia, how was your week?
My week is the same every day. I am tired of Corona. I am ready to go outside, but I will tell you, I'm not ready to take this mask off until we have the go ahead. I'm really excited, y'all. For those of you who don't know, I'm a mother of 4. And I have 2 birthdays coming up. So I am actually, and every time my kids have a birthday, I have a birthday. So I have a birthday on the 23rd coming up and on the 29th of March. So
We gotta hit that.
that's right. My babies, so it's about them. I'm really excited. I did there a lot of meetings this week, You also have a lot of things going on with the acceptance of the transformation plan that is part of the blueprint. There's lots coming up. I see people ready to hit the streets again. NYCHA, families, partners, and everyone are getting ready to hit the streets and start protesting. But this is something I want to say. It's good to hit those streets. It's good to start protesting. It's good to have that type of rallying. And that is only a part of the solution to our problems. We do need to organize around that. We do need to make sure that. Am I going in and out? My headphones.
You gotta lean in
It's
and
my
talk.
headphones.
No, you gotta lean in and talk. Oh, wait, hold on. Because what happens is, right? Okay, I had to explain this on the other show. There's like a automatic turn off, and it is voice activated. So if you're too far away, you just say, and then it kind of pops in. You heard that?
Okay.
So just project automatically. Just come out, bomb. Be Claudia.
Ah.
See? There you go. So it automatically turns off.
I got you. I just didn't, Thank you, Rock.
You're welcome.
But other than that, it's cumpleaños time for me. It's still battle time. I got my battle gear on. I'm ready to approach these elections in a comfortable manner in which I make others. It's time for us to make others uncomfortable because they feel comfortable coming into our developments. They feel comfortable coming to tell us what they want to do with us. For us, what they are planning. But once they get elected and are in office, they tend to forget about us. And a lot of the promises that are made are not kept. So I will keep saying it from now till later that this voting season, NYCHA has to come out. NYCHA must come out. You must come out and exercise your right to vote. I will give you suggestions, but no way will I tell you how to vote. But I will tell you, your vote is more important during this time than ever and in the future coming. Because what's coming down the pipelines for us can only be changed on the local government level. And you need policy and legislation to be pushed. Right, Manny?
Of course. And see, that is what our vote, that's the reason we need to start voting for policy and legislation. We need to stop voting for politicians and personality. We need to start voting for what will actually be ratified for us. We need to start looking at the voting process differently. We need to start taking into account that the council member, the state senator, the local politician that you're voting for is one vote. They have one vote for whatever policy that they're putting in. NYCHA is spread throughout the city, right? We're talking about, we have 51 council members. The vast majority of that 51 council members, I think there may be maybe 5 that don't represent a NYCHA development throughout that 51. We need to be able to engage, we need to be able to grasp onto the majority. Nosotros tenemos 51 consejeros que representan a Nueva York. De esos 51 representantes, la mayoría están representando un complejo de NYCHA. Y nosotros tenemos que pensar del voto diferente, tenemos que mirar el voto que cada consejero es un voto. Y para nosotros progresar necesitamos la mayoría del voto para introducir póliza. Porque eso es razón que lo tenemos para ellos escribir póliza y nosotros no estamos inscritos en ninguna de las pólizas que ellos están imponiendo. We are not written in none of the policies that they are putting in. We don't see any benefit. We are never the focus of that legislation that's supposed to be beneficial to us.
They look at us like we're property.
Right.
Not. They look at us as part of the building instead of people, basic human beings.
I wanna start the conversation off, right? Because we want to go into Blueprint for Change and NYCHA. Now we're touching on these concepts, right? Because as you know, it's a broader issue. We want to bring you in, so we want to set up the context on this. Now, there's this thing that happened throughout the country in our primarily in our neighborhoods, and it was this thing. It started off in the late 30s, in the mid-late 30s, called red line segregation. Red line is Jim Crow's sister, right? And what they did in down south with Jim Crow, which was that blatant segregation, they did it up north with redlining. Redlining was conducted by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. They was asked by the government to assess communities in levels of hazard, economic hazard, right? With regards to credit, with regards to investments, both public and private. And so if a population had a high demographic of black or Italian or non-Hispanic white.
A lot of the Jewish people.
I mean, those who were any
Non-white.
non-Hispanic white population, primarily blacks and Italians, and other demographics, but that was in the 1940s, right? So there was primarily those two demographics that were abundant, and Irish, I believe, as well.
Yes.
So now, if we could look at, so now this is the side by side, but let's take a look at before we get to the side by side, let's take a look at the New York City red line map. Okay. So now, in this map here, you're gonna see from up to a certain point, what's on the left side, if you look down the diagonal, what's on the left top corner, that's Jersey.
Roja.
So you're gonna see in the Jersey side, you're gonna see the New York City side right next to it. You can see the Manhattan borough, and then you see it goes down in Queens. You got Far Rockaway down here, all the way at the bottom lower right hand side. And so now let's put up the NYCHA map. Okay. Now NYCHA was built during this time, right? This was the same time, this was the New Deal. Public housing was a New Deal project, right? And they were built, now mind you, public housing was intended to be exclusive for white people. And now, so this is the today map of NYCHA. And so if we can see all of these dots here, this is how vast NYCHA is in New York City.
So I'm gonna go with, the upper left-hand corner. All right, so I see far upper hand left, there's white, right? And I'm assuming that's the Hudson River there, right?
I believe so.
Upper left, okay.
Yeah.
And then if I come just a little bit to the right, I'm looking at Manhattan.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, and those little dots that are there, and I guess that's the Bronx up at the top, right?
Exactly.
And all those dots are the housing projects.
Right.
Yes.
All of those dots are housing projects. They're differentiated between senior developments and other developments, and there's other characteristics to it. But now, let's go to, and then let's just pay attention, like Far Rockaway right here in the lower right hand side.
Right above the NYCHA logo there.
Right in that corner.
Right, that's Far Rock.
So they're now, mind you, they're right in that corner. The rest of Far Rockaway, and I think that's a Broad Channel.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
All of the public housing is in that corner. So now let's go to the side by side map.
Okay.
So now we put this side by side map together to give a visual of what it is that where we are with redlining. Now this is today, right? So the redlining map that you see on the left side, that was 1940, right around that area. The NYCHA map that you see on the right side, that's today. That's 2019.
This is 80 years later.
NYCHA map.
This is 80 years differential between these two maps, because you're talking from 1930 to 2020.
So ahora tú estás mirando a la izquierda, que es la mapa de los 1940 que está demostrando la línea roja en barrios que estaban determinados de ser peligrosos para investidos. Y lo característico de estos barrios son que la demografía era la mayoría negro o italiano, o en ese tiempo también yo creo Irlanda, Irish. So perdona if I said that wrong. Right? Y después en la izquierda es la mapa de NYCHA, donde están todos los complejos de NYCHA. So now if we take a look at that, it's like tracing paper. The red line, as you see on the left, if you was to put it right on top of the NYCHA map, all of our developments are red line.
Okay.
It seems that red line happened in New York City around public housing.
So you got a question in the chat room, and Robin Walker says, "Hey, Robin, what's up?" Robin says, "I heard that NYCHA is segregated. Is that true?"
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. And so we have to look at, if we go back into history, 1996, NYCHA lost a civil rights lawsuit because they were racial steering. Racial steering meaning that they were putting white residents into specific developments and black residents into other specific developments. And there was a list of about 30 different developments that were predominantly white, right? Predominantly white, predominantly Jewish. And we wouldn't go into those developments. They wouldn't push us into those developments. In 1996, they got sued for racial steering, and that lawsuit won. When we look at the mismanagement, when we look at the lack of cohesion between services, between the NYPD and the NYCHA development, when you look at, if you go to the train station, you will see a picture of the train station, the toll booth worker, or the train station manager, not the toll booth worker, the train station, the platform manager, and the officers. They're saying we're working together. NYCHA has their own jurisdiction of police, and that cohesion is not there. That collaboration is not there. You have Viper rooms in certain developments, and it's not, the communication is not happening. And so, and that happens, that's part of that redlining. Because the investment, when you say the lack of investment, so that means in those areas they weren't able to get mortgages, they weren't able to get business loans. En esa área ellos no podían buscar los préstamos para comprar una casa, para abrir un negocio. And so, not only that, it was disinvestment in the public services as well. You wouldn't get the trash picked up properly. You wouldn't get, just the basic services from the city.
So hold on for one second. I got to delve in this for a minute, because we're moving, right? And I just need to understand. So what you're saying, when they did this redlining thing, and I think Robin's saying that Robert Moses created the red lines, right? Robert Moses. I don't know what she's saying.
Robert Moses created the architecture for the buildings and the highways for New York City.
Right.
The Homeowners Loan Corporation, they were the ones asked by the government to create these red line maps throughout the city.
So they created the red line maps so that
Throughout
they could
the country, rather.
not service us, so that they could not give us mortgages where these red lines were drawn. Is that
exactly
literally what it is?
Yes.
Okay, they limited, that gave you limited availability right there.
Off the cuff. If you was redline, basically you were screwed, so to speak. Like it's like you can't get certain things because you're within the red line.
Yeah, you won't get so.
and that line is so. If it's like you could teeter either way, because if you're, and it's amazing how that goes through, because you see, okay, this is the line. If you're on this side, you prospering. It's very similar to the way you look at Manhattan. Okay? I'm gonna take my area for instance. Okay, East Harlem. When you go above 96th Street,
Right.
the demographic area is totally different than when you're coming uptown. Uptown is totally, but the opportunities, and I'm gonna give a perfect example of this. I don't want to put that out there, but I live in East Harlem, right? And the district school, and this is my son, he's 22 now. So when he was getting ready to start school, his local district school was one of the worst in the communities. So me as a parent, I was horrified to put my son in there, even as a first-time mom. But if on 94th Street, there's another school, and it just so happened that I knew someone who was able to get my son into that school. So therein lies, in this school, who is literally 2 to 3 blocks away from my building where I live, he was offered way more opportunities than if he would have went to his local school, which was in 3-block direction opposite.
So in other words, the school that he went to was on the other side of the red line.
Of the red line. My son was offered
You want to see
many opportunities.
There's an example. We go there. I think Cabrini Green was in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Cabrini Green used to be the largest public housing development in the country. When it came down, that's when Queensbridge became the largest. But Cabrini Green was in a red line area. The community right next to Cabrini Green was a white community. But they were now, because the way the red line works is there was 4 different designations. So green means all white, all right?
Okay.
Then you had purple. I think it was a purple line. And that meant desirable. Yellow meant it was declining, and then red meant terrible. Means that it's all black here.
We're not dealing with this.
We're going to abandon that. Right? So now Cabrini Green, they had a red line, and so that white community that was right next to them, they had a yellow one. So that means that they weren't getting the services because they were so close to that red line community. So they built a wall. They literally built a fence, a wall around Cabrini Green to separate Cabrini Green from that community. That community went up to the purple. They got
because they built the wall.
Yeah.
Because they built the wall. Because they separated.
And that's how they got more access?
And that's how they got more access.
Yeah.
Jim Crow. Red line is Jim Crow's hula hoop. Put up the map, the red line map for the country.
Okay, hold on. I'm going right there right now.
Right, so we're going to see now
how
how perversive redlining was throughout the country. Now, this has a major impact to NYCHA. When we're looking at the mismanagement, when we're looking at all of the troubles that we're going through, and we're wondering, like, why can't they get it together? Well, this is predominantly why.
Look at the areas in which
this is racism.
Is that this map here?
That's this map here.
There you go.
So now, when you see all of the blue dots, that's where redlining occurred. And so when they say up north, when you look at this map, it's really east and west. Right. And so most of the east, predominantly in the northeast, right, that's where redlining was happening. Because these were the freedom states.
Right. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this is covert segregation. This is quiet segregation. This is with smile in your face segregation. I remember in a Malcolm X speech where he was comparing the Republicans and the Democrats, where he said the Republicans are like wolves that want to, they just want to rip you apart, and the Democrats are like foxes who come up to you and they want to charm you, but they want to stick the knife in your back. But ultimately, the same goal is to get you on their plate. Well, this is an example of this, right? So down south, where you don't see the blue dots, right? Or you see very rarely.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah,
you had Jim Crow there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so as they moved up, because they wanted to maintain that illusion, New York State, and now because you was talking about schools, New York State, because of New York City, is the most segregated school system in the country.
I'm gonna tell you about it right now because Eleanor Bumpus says, I remember the school telling that my kids couldn't go to their school because we want district
they were in the zip. That's exactly their zone. That's why they call zone
schools.
And like my story, I was fortunate enough to be able to, I knew the right person to get my son, my child. But that's only one child out of thousands. So how many of us are parents who want better for our children? You understand? That's why that zoning and districting, it's a problem.
I can hear Carmen's voice in her text. Right? She's like, hello?
Doña Quiñones!
Yeah.
I can hear her voice in the text. She's like, hello?
So,
Like, duh.
I think a lot of us don't know how the civil rights movement was. I think it was. We started the civil rights movement here in New York, right? In New York City. When you start looking back at Malcolm, Martin, you go back to a lot of the heavy names that we have coming out of here. And to tell you the truth, one of the largest civil rights protests that ever happened in history happened here in New York City, where you had the school boycott, where in 1964, for one day, I believe it was 670.
It's not up yet. That's my editing screen.
It was
so when you want me
400.
to transition, you let me know.
Okay.
It was 400. No, but I was looking to make sure I got that number. 460,000 students did not go to school to protest because they wanted integration. They wanted the schools to be integrated because that meant better education. And
Can I tell them what happened?
that was the largest protest in history. Right? Can you put it up?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Let's transition this. We want to see this. There it is. Bang.
So now 460. Now, and if you look at the signs that they're putting up there, integration is education, right? And then look at, and thank you, Rock, for
Better
setting it up this way.
schools.
Please look at that sign over there. Integración, una gran educación. This civil rights movement, el movimiento era unido. Esto era para una comunidad unido para el progreso de nuestros hijos, de nuestra familia. This was a united front, a united stance that we had all together. And so that's why that part right there is very important, because it demonstrates how we collectively fight and the way that we're going to win this. And so... All right, so
Hold on. Let me put it on mute. Hold on. Let me put it on mute. Yes.
A water bug. Ah! Stop playing.
Where?
Are you serious?
Over there. It's over there.
Oh, shit. Girl. Go ahead.
So
I'll kill him now.
now, what happened? Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
All right, so I wanted so now forgive us, y'all.
We had a moment in
When these
here.
things, all right.
I'm so sorry.
Insects have rights too, right?
Listen, we just...
So, all right, listen. We got back showtime.
Yes.
So now, that was one day in history, and they had the leverage, but then that leverage was taken away. Rock, if you could get us to the 15,000 white women who protested this, and so no mind you.
Mujer blanquita protestar.
So now, mind you, 460,000 children missed school in protest because they wanted better schools, and then came 15,000 white women who marched across the Brooklyn Bridge, right? And they were in protest of that integration. And one of the commentary from the white ladies were that they have civil rights too.
Absolutely.
So now, mind you, well, we got to break that down. So our civil rights is to be on an equal playing field when it comes to resources and treatment and respect, and their civil rights is to maintain segregation.
Absolutely.
For this particular, in this snapshot of time, for these people who are walking. Because I'm not trying to put a blanket statement across on anybody, and this is not a conversation of white and black, because this is a social construct. And I think that a lot of people they become too
wrapped up in
it and not seeing the
bigger
walls
picture.
of the board game.
Because
Right,
one
right.
of the major things about this, right? Because we said 460,000 did not get what they wanted, needed, and deserved because we had these 15,000. It was a big distraction. How can 15,000 and think about it, 15,000 white women stopped a movement of 460,000 children.
What happened? Now, what happened was once they did that, the leaders behind the boycott, the school boycott,
That's what
they compromised with promises of, oh, we're going to make sure that your schools, even though we're going to keep them segregated, we're going to make sure that
you get what you need.
that you're going to get what you need. Now, we hear this story today. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because we got a fight going on today, and we got to look back at history and see how we approached it, how we made impacts, and then where we slipped. Because that's a big problem. We can't lose ground with compromise.
Exactly.
We have to make sure that the bare minimum that we ask for, the respect and the equity that needs to come to us, that stays on the table and no compromise around that. Because they're right now, the whole purpose of the blueprint and RAD is to increase the velocity of gentrification. So redlining is what caused white flight. White flight was what brought the city into almost bankruptcy, right? They lost a lot of economy when the white family started moving over to the suburbs.
I just want to
It
address
was
that
us
really
that
quick.
stayed, that
So,
built it up and came in here.
Let me address that, because the white flight that you're talking about, which I witnessed, right, was from a Bronx standpoint, because I lived in the Bronx. When we lived in the Bronx, I lived in the Bronx from the time I was born in '67 till I was 18 in '84. But in the '70s, you saw we lived amongst white people. We lived amongst Jews and
seen them on the block.
Germans. They were our next door neighbor. And that white flight you're talking about is what happened. They eventually moved out of the neighborhood, and we were in a good neighborhood, right? They moved out of the neighborhood, and then you also had the Jewish landlords that owned the tenements, and they were burning down the tenements, right? They were hiring people to burn down the tenements and do that. So the white flight was real. What's interesting, and this is sort of what my question is, right? How was it that this became a universal thought? That white people that were living in the Bronx or in Harlem or wherever they were had a universal thought to go, we're going to the suburbs. Like, what was that trigger?
They were given incentives to go.
Okay. So we're looking at like Levittown, Levitt. All right. So we got multiple Levittowns throughout the country. We got a Levittown here in Long Island. Levittown was a construction, a community construction of houses that was whites only, right? The persons who were the build of that town was based off the sale of homes to only white people, right? And so now they're coming into these homes with low interest and no interest mortgages, right? There's a book called Color of Law.
This is built like during World War II, right? After the veterans who came home?
after
When they
World
came
War
home. Okay.
Yeah, World War II.
And so they were given mortgages, and those who were losing mortgages, they got assistance to make sure that they didn't lose their home and they stayed in their home, right? And so now these folks, like if you look at the projects, because remember the projects when it was first built, and when I say projects, that's how it is written in legislation, right? It's termed projects. I know that we have with developments and understand we are developments, but in the legislation, it's still referred to as a project. These projects, and now mind you, they were referred to as projects when white folks was living in them, when it was predominantly white folk, right? Because this was the New Deal project.
Right.
So they're moving into these homes with no interest and low interest mortgages that was similar to the rent, and so they're going into a home with a refrigerator, stove, backyard, and equity. Because now you're not paying rent, you're paying into a mortgage. Now, it was that move now, that's why we have such a huge wealth disparity between white and black. Because they were able to move into homes and get equity, and we were left behind in the projects and in disadvantaged and distressed communities that became distressed because of redlining as well as because of white flight. Now, gentrification is the reversal of that.
Redlining.
Gentrification is the reversal of white flight, where they're sending, I'm not going to say they're sending, but you have this population of affluent, a white demographic that's affluent, that's coming back into the communities. And so they change the community with their presence.
Absolutely.
Because they have discretionary funds, they have more money, and they're coming in, so people start raising the rent.
So is there something that's happening in that's creating this universal thought, right? That, white people are saying, okay, we're going to move back into the hood. We're going to move to the hood. Like, what, you understand? I'm trying to figure out what universal thought is involved. Like, what is the one person's going, listen, if y'all move back into the hood, we're going to hook it up and we're going to move the minorities out. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Well,
what is that universal thought?
Racism.
It's to me,
Okay.
is racism in a sense that I could do what I want, when I want, and how I want to. You understand? It's that sense of entitlement. I was over here, and you know what? I don't think that's working, and it goes back to what Manny was saying when they developed the buildings in which we're living in today. They were called projects. What is a project? You get what I'm saying?
Right, something that you worked on.
It's something you work on, and it has a beginning and an end date.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You
definitely.
understand?
Right.
So if you look at it in that aspect, right? So it's like you living in this project, and they don't want to fund the project anymore. They find that it's not fun anymore. So how do we? Okay, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it.
Well, just to that point right there, if I can help you out. Para ese punto que tú estás haciendo, it's not that they don't want to fund the public housing, because public housing
It's not beneficial for them to fund public housing, so they don't want to fund public housing.
has had capital issues based off, because remember, the funding for public housing is based off of Congress. Right? And how they vote and the strategies that they come in. El dinero que viene a housing público es dependiente en Congreso, y como ellos votan y como ellos van a distribuir el capital, ¿verdad? Y el dinero para manejamiento. So the problem with this is that we have too much resources that's legislated to us. Nosotros tenemos muchos recursos que está legislado para nuestra comunidad en housing público por el país entero, especialmente aquí en NYCHA, especially here in NYCHA, NYCHA being a jumbo housing authority, the only jumbo housing authority. Well, of three, one of three, right? And the largest of them all, right? They outsized the next largest housing authority by 4 times, right? So Puerto Rico has the largest housing authority, the second largest housing authority with 50,000 units. We have 174. So now, that's almost what? Yeah, that's 4 times. Almost 4 times. So, but we have access to like Section 3, which is a government employment, training, and contracting mandate.
With very little enforcement. You have very little enforcement on these things that you're talking about. So you're absolutely right that we do have these things in our communities.
Home ownership.
We have
access to home ownership is legislated for Section 9. Right? Section 9 being public housing. Section 8 being what they want to convert us to. Sección 9 es housing público. Sección 8 es lo que ellos no quieren convertir. Es verdad. Y es una clase de Sección 8 diferente. The Section 8 that they want to change us to is not the traditional housing choice voucher.
So if I'm in Section 9,
you're public housing.
Listen.
I'm public housing in Section 9. And this is a misconception that Section 8 is, right? That's a misconception. So Section 9. So in Section 9, what you're saying is now I'm on a path to owning my own house. Is that?
You're supposed
in
to
Section
be
9, because you're on Section 9, you have access to certain legislative resources that Section 8 doesn't have.
Okay.
Right? There's the housing authority can offer. They can put together a home ownership program. Right?
And they do
which
offer it,
which they don't. They put you into FHA homes, which is different than owning your public housing unit. Right?
Okay.
There's an opportunity for you to own the unit. Now, when they take you, when the home ownership plan that they had was into FHA homes, see, that didn't dip into their money. And see, that one of the main reasons why the housing authority doesn't want to offer home ownership, and they tried. They had 3 developments. If you look on their portfolio, you'll see 3 MHOP. MHOP means home ownership, multifamily home ownership program, right? But they never concluded it. They never let them. Actually, they're putting them on RAD.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because once you reduce the units, you reduce the subsidy. They don't want to reduce the subsidy. Ellos no quieren ofrecer de ser dueño para su apartamento porque ellos no quieren reducir las unidades que ellos tienen porque cada unidad es como ellos reciben los recursos del gobierno. And that's why they want to switch us over to Section 8. Because Section 8, they'll get more money. It's not a benefit to the families who live here.
Right.
It's a benefit to the housing authority.
It goes back
because the housing authority now gets more funding, right? And so that's what basically the whole back and forth of this is. Now, what the blueprint is and what RAD does is it puts people on Section 8. When you get on Section 8. You don't get the same 30% household income. You have to be between 30 and 50% of the AMI, the area medium income, para tú recibir los 30% de su renta. El beneficio es the subsidy, perdóname, I don't have that word. The subsidy, de 30% de su renta, tú tienes que su ingreso de dinero tiene que ser entre medio 30%, bueno, no puede ser más de 50% del mediano ingreso de la área, right? You can't be more than 50% of your AMI, of the area medium income. And so they want to go to Section 8 because that means that they get to charge more rent. That means that they pay less subsidy. Right. So I think the AMI for New York City is $78,700 a year for a household, a family of 4.
Who makes $78,000 a year?
But this is a household. This isn't per person. 78,700 al año es el mediano de la área el mediano ingreso de la área para Nueva York, para los 5 boroughs de Nueva York. And so 50% de ese AMI para una familia de 4. Right, so this is based on a family of 4.
Yeah, that's no money.
Right,
not for a family of 4.
So a family of 4, at 50% of the AMI is $56,850. So para 50% de la AMI, ¿verdad? Voy a decir los promedios. Cuando digo promedios, sabes que yo estoy hablando de AMI, ¿verdad? So 50% del promedio para una familia de 4 es 56,850. So if you make more than 58,600, 56,850, your subsidy goes down.
Absolutely.
When you get to 80%, cuando tú llegas a 80% del promedio, tú pierdes el soporte del gobierno completamente. When you get 80% of the AMI, you lose
everything.
The subsidy completely.
Everything.
So now that's different than Section 9. Section 9, you have a flat rent. En Sección 9, tú tienes una renta plano. So that means that you pay 30% until you reach this certain household. Like your income goes up. And if the flat rent is $1,500, si la renta plano es $1,500 para esa clase de apartamento, $1,500 for that type of apartment, right? You can now choose to pay the $1,500 instead of, letting it go up higher.
Right.
And so it's support for you to be able to build up. They're trying to remove that. They want to take that out.
Because they're trying to keep you there, so to speak.
Well, no, they're trying to kick you out.
They
Trying to
want
kick
you
you
out
out.
for that
Yeah.
market
So,
rate rent. Because if you look who's affected by that, right? Because I'm thinking about it, and that's why I love just having these conversations. So if you have a senior couple, and this is point an example, you have a senior couple. Both of them, let's just say one worked for transit, one worked for the hotels. Both union jobs, right? So now they have pension, they have their 401ks, they have their Social Security. So they're above. They reach that 80% for the supplemental assistance. So now what that actually means is they're going to be paying top dollar for their apartment, less the home ownership opportunity, less the opportunity for them to be saving, right? Mm-hmm. And now your rent is market rate, and now you have to choose between paying your rent, getting rid of your car, and
Rent
food.
burden. So then what this does
So
is,
here's my question: is this slide relevant to what we're talking about right now?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's bring that over.
So, and I appreciate that. So this slide right here, we're looking at, this is a 2017 report from the Manhattan Institute. Now, just to be clear, the Manhattan Institute is a conservative report, right? These are Republicans, but we're just looking at the information that they're presenting on NYCHA. And now these folks, they're trying to, these are billionaires who are behind this organization, who are trying to reorganize NYCHA. And so the reason why I'm showing it coming from here is so that we to look at the blueprint for change and ask where that came from as well, right? But now if you look at the incomes here, right, overall, so it shows you the household incomes, 53,000. Now this is for 2017. So the AMI for 2017 was less. So it was around that range at that time. So you got 10% of public housing according to this study, and they got these numbers from analyzing the census tract, right? It was a particular report. 10%, over 10% of the population in 2017 was making over $53,000 a year. And that's the household, more than 10.1% of the households. So that is a
People in NYCHA are not broke, y'all. We have jobs. We have a lot of ingenuity, intuity, and we have a lot of drive. And I hope you guys are following the story that we're putting to you. It's for you to take this information. It's here for you. Please, do this research. We need help with, getting this information out. I know it's technical. I know it's a lot, but we have to do it.
And so here's something that I wanted to also. So the number of families that are on welfare, right, is 12%. And now this is 2020. This is coming from a 2020 NYCHA report, NYCHA demographic report.
Listen, right there.
So now this was I took clips of a whole bunch of stuff in here, right? But that's from January 1st, 2020. So 12%, and I think that number's here. Let me see where that number is, so we could get it. It's right here,
right there.
Right. And so now this you'll find. You could go to the transparency link, the NYCHA transparency page, and you could look at the resident data summary. And so and these are NYCHA numbers that they provided. So that's 12.9% are on welfare. Right?
And
There's nothing wrong.
entirety.
Yo quiero decir esto, no hay nada mal estando en welfare. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just an income, just so that we can show the scale of income, right? From where you start to where you could be, right? Because that's what public housing is for, so that you can transition, right? I heard a lot of folks, especially a lot of white folks and a lot of folks that are leaning towards against our community, dismantling our communities, where they say, oh, this is temporary housing. This isn't temporary housing. It's transitional housing. It's to transition you from low income, from poverty, into you being able to choose where you want to live. Even if that is your community, where you say, I want to choose to live here and make this better. And so we have to understand that these are significant. This is significant, because now what the blueprint for change would do, when we're looking at, if you put that number back up again.
Which one you want?
The one we was looking at, the Manhattan Institute, just to look at that 53,000, that over 10%. So that means that a lot of the people, when you go to Section 8, a lot of these people are going to be rent burdened from, I won't say day one, because I believe that there's a 1 year accommodation period where they don't, and they,
Yes.
Right here?
Yes.
and they raise your rent incrementally, but essentially you're looking at a rent burden situation. And for a large population, and what does that rent burden do? It adds to the migration. People saying, you know what, I'm going down south.
Okay, but
I'm leaving New York City. I'm out of here.
I want to interject, right? Because this just like amazes me every time I go through this. You see, again, and I'm going to get back to the seniors. They are going to be rent burdened. Where are they going to go? And if you look at it from an overall perspective, we had, and I'm going to just bring it to the pandemic. We had over 500,000 people pass away from COVID. 400,000 of them were grandparents. 400. This is on the news. And you can look it up. 400,000 of the deaths from COVID were 65 and older. Now, and why I say that, when you look at the demographic of NYCHA, it was supposed to be transitional housing. Nobody transitioned. What are we looking at? Aging communities with seniors. So, again, if you look at the big picture, they are killing us.
So here you
They are making sure that, what are you showing us now?
this right here. So, person 62 years. Person 62 years and over living alone. Gente 62 de edad o más viviendo solo 38,895. 38,895 persons living alone 62 years and over in NYCHA. Right? Now, something like, if Section 8 was to come to them, let's say that they on Social Security. Let's say they don't have a pension. Right, they're on Social Security, maybe SSI, maybe they fall within that 30 to 50%. They'd be able to, they'd be able to live pretty much the same dynamic that they had. Right, not too much would change, right, for them, and that's 38,000. Now, mind you, right now, NYCHA has 3,000 households on Section 8 in public housing right now, over 3,000. And so they're saying that the blueprint for change, they want to do the blueprint for change because they want to access tenant protection vouchers. Tenant protection vouchers is what HUD gives to persons who are being displaced. Your home, you can't live in your home no more, and they have to move you out. So here's a tenant protection voucher, right? So that you can go, if your apartment, if your development's going to get demolished or your home is unrepairable at that moment, they give you a TPV voucher so that you could go off and live somewhere else.
That's interesting, and I want to interject. And I don't think it was Eleanor Bumpers. It was somebody else. It's one of the people that tune into the One NYCHA show on Sunday, and they actually experienced that. Right? It was somebody's grandmother or something, and they weren't here. I think they were in Chicago someplace, and they gave them the voucher, and they said, "We're going to put you here." Right, and then as soon as we're done with your apartment,
You could come back.
You can come back. They did that, right? And then they knocked the building down.
Exactly.
Like, what was that?
not only that, you got to remember too, right? When your building goes under construction, that's not a 1 or 2 year job. Sometimes it takes 10 to 15 years. So again, now after the 10 to 15 years, depending on your age, and you go through so many different things during that time frame. So you cannot guarantee that person is going to come back.
Exactly. Right.
So
after they've been displaced.
Absolutely.
Now, but just considering the fact that they have...
I just want to ask one question. So once they're displaced, right, and they're in their new place, where's the downside on that?
Transferred. They don't say displaced.
So once they've been transferred, right, what's the downside? Like in the new place that you're in. So you're in a new apartment or a new house or whatever.
Depending on the family.
What's the downside of it? Yeah, that's what I want to know.
So if you're, like, for example...
We got to know the downside.
So, all right. So the benefits of Section 9, los recursos, los beneficios que están conectados a Sección 9, right? You're looking at the Housing Authority can access, make a home ownership plan, right? So you got home ownership. So when you looked at that 53,000, that 10% of the population making 53,000 back in 2017, right? A home ownership plan for them would be beneficial. Putting them on equity, they'd be ready. Or I'm not gonna say they would be ready, but they would be primed to go through a process to say, let's look at home ownership. Let's look at getting some equity so that we could take our next step.
Right.
You got the seniors, right? If you're a senior and you're not looking at Section 3. Section 3 is another benefit that's attached to Section 9, right? Section 3 of the HUD Act of 1968 says that the HUD expenditures into construction has to be mandated to go to public housing residents in regards to work, training, or contracting. You want to start your own business. Well, once you're a senior, right? Yeah, let's say you're 65, 62, 65. You're not looking at... many seniors aren't looking to get back into the workforce. They got
not at all.
Social Security, SSI, right? So that wouldn't really, affect them, right? And then the other thing is the resident council representation. When done right, when a resident council is in their know, right? For one thing, the resident council does not work for NYCHA. NYCHA is not your boss, right? You are a representative. You are elected to represent the residents of your development. That's your jurisdiction, and you represent them to the housing authority.
Consultant.
The other part to that is that you are here to influence housing policy. So part of NYCHA's exploitation of Section 3, I would say some of that responsibility does fall on us because we haven't engaged NYCHA as the resident councils, as a collective resident council, and said to them, we need this. This is the policy we need. This is the compliance that we need. But a lot, there is a significant, I won't say a lot, but there is a significant population, from what I understand, who does not have the full understanding of what resident council representation.
Listen, and I'm going to talk to that right now, because I'm glad you brought that up. All right? Because I deal with plethora of presidents, right? And just my little process alone, I was on my resident council board for almost 4.5 years. Well, yeah, 4 to 5 years. 5 years before I ran for president, but I participated in it. And the reason why I participated in this process is because it was the dual and sole entity of representation from that perspective of the residents. So when you are elected as a resident council, and I mean the entire board, it's not just the president, but everything falls on the president. If something goes wrong in your development, our job is to advocate for you. Our job is to make sure that you're getting the resources, you're getting the information that you need, okay? Now, where the hindrance comes in is that you have people who come from outside of your development that might be giving you the same information that your resident council is giving you, but you're more perceptive of it because it's coming from somebody else from the outside. But where the problem then lies is that person that wants to come into that development has to respect the authority that was given through electoral right to work with that resident council. Anybody wanting to work in any NYCHA development has to go through the resident council. Why do they have to go through the resident council? Because that is the structure That is the structure that is put in place. And if you continuously disrespect the structure, you will not be able to go forward, because this is the reason why you have a lot of advocates who are great advocates. They're leaders in the community. But due to the fact they want to circumvent around their resident councils, or they feel that their resident councils are not working with them. If your resident council is not working with you, guess what? There are elections. Just because when we have a president of the United States that we don't like, once they are elected in, we can't say, oh, we don't like the job that you're doing. Oh, we just don't like you, so you gotta go. No, it's a due process. So you have to respect the process. The process was put there for the representation, so make it what you need it to be. If you cannot work with your resident council president, you have a vice president. If you can't work with that one, you have other board members who are on there who are willing to work. We do not go for these positions and take it lightly. When you say that you want to run for any election, any elected position within the council, any elected position within the council holds a title, and it was put there so that you can follow protocol. We have to stop that. We definitely have to stop that, because you know what, me for one, as a president, if you do not speak to me, NYCHA is public housing. It is not public property. If you do not speak to me, or if you do not have the okay from NYCHA, do not post your flyers in my buildings, because I don't know how you're organizing. We don't have to agree. And that's one thing I tell everybody. We don't have to agree, but it is a protocol. And if you don't start with respecting the protocol, how can you move forward? You cannot move forward. You have to respect the councils. And that is what democracy is. We're not here all to get along. It's the disagreements that I appreciate.
I mean, that's what you need.
I learn from.
You need the disagreement, right? Because a disagreement gives you a perspective, another perspective other than your own. And in the chat room, Robin Walker says, how can the new Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge, work to fix the issues with NYCHA?
Oh, that's good though
She
too,
did
because
put an article
Marcia
on
Fudge she had a press conference not too long ago, right? And they asked her about the housing bubble, right? Is there a housing bubble, meaning the collapse of the housing market? And she said yes. And then she asked for 70. She said that they're asking for, or they're looking at $70 to $100 billion in order to correct that issue, right? And they're looking at Biden being supportive of that, and that now that there is well, she didn't say this part, right? So this is just me accentuating to something when she said, when she spoke about that $70 to $100 billion, being that we have a majority in both the House and the Senate, and we have the Senate majority, even though it's 50 plus one, the plus one being the Vice President Kamala Harris, that would give appropriations, where they can vote on the appropriations or the distribution of the budget. And so, potentially getting that $70 to $100 billion could be feasible in this time frame now. But we have to act now, right? We have to now put some pressure together. This is where...
Can you explain to them what act now means? Because, I mean, like, if I'm a listener out there and I hear, oh, we got to act now. Well, let's go hit the street right now. Let's go protest.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
No,
because I know I'm not talking about that.
Well, no.
You took your headphones off.
Huh?
You took off your headphones.
Oh, I didn't have them on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Oh, unplug it.
Don't worry, guys.
How do you unplug it?
All right.
Okay. So, first and foremost, what we need to do, right, and these are the resident councils, as well as the residents, and we need to come together and come up with our own plan for NYCHA.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the first thing. We need to really look at, and that's pretty much what I was talking about right now, right? We're isolating these demographics. We need to come up with our own plan, our own PowerPoint, our own presentation of how this is supposed to work. We have to understand our authority in this elected position and what our responsibilities are. I was looking while you were talking, for example, for resident councils, if people don't know, right? And this is 964 135C. It says, while the housing authority has responsibility for management operations, it shall ensure strong resident participation. Let's say just resident council residents participation in all issues and facets of its operations through the duly elected resident councils at public housing developments and with jurisdiction-wide resident councils. So now, that's just one aspect of the authority that a resident council has in representing the housing authority. Representing the residents to the housing authority. Another aspect would be us creating our own plan. And stop letting them tell us or wait for them to tell us or wait for somebody else to come out from outside to help us.
Absolutely. That's what
I like that.
And this is what the act now means, to now start having this discussion. Right? Having that discussion, not what they're going to do next, but what we're going to do next. Right? Because for every community, it can be different. It depends on the relationships that you have. How many the relationships that the community has with the council members or the local representatives, that relationship, how does it expand out? How close, what's your next jurisdiction over? Are you talking to them and seeing how you're going to leverage those? Because remember, each one of these is one vote.
Every council member has a vote.
We also have to start paying attention and looking at how they're exploiting us. We got to stop letting them wait for them to diagnose us to then give us the answer. We have to take a look and say, these are our problems. Right? This is what we have to fix. This is what we can correct, and this is where it's at. When we tell people, we've been telling people about the 964, and you still got a lot of people who haven't gone through it yet. They haven't.
964 is what?
24 CFR 964. That's just one of the legislations.
Okay, let's slow that down because you flew it, right?
Yeah, it happens.
24 is 24.
I'm hit the slow motion button.
CFR. Okay.
Go ahead.
24 CFR, Code of Federal Regulation 964.
So Title 24 stands for Title 24, which is HUD. Anytime that you see 24 before Code of Federal Regulation or CFR, you know that you're dealing with a HUD document.
That's HUD. 24 is HUD.
24 is HUD.
Okay.
And so now, doesn't mean that all HUD documents are public housing, but you have certain ones that are specific to public housing. And HUD has a whole bunch of different other buckets that they deal with. Right? When I say buckets, a different type of a housing strategies that they deal with.
How about we do a how-to show on how to navigate through the NYCHA portal?
And that would be.
Yeah, I would like that.
How you navigate the NYCHA portal, and I think we have another show. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of
Like
people-
how to navigate through the NYCHA portal, because we tell people to do things, right? But there's got to be a step one, right? And that step one is the step that we know, right? Navigating the NYCHA portal. I love that.
There was one thing that Marsha Fudge said, though, just to bring it back to that.
Yeah.
There was one thing that she said that we need to pay attention to, and it really pertains to us. Where she said, where they asked her, because the Trump administration had weakened the civil rights laws across the nation, fair housing being one of them. And she said fair housing and civil rights laws, especially fair housing, for her, fair housing is the focus. And that was the question. And I'm sorry, because I said civil rights, not just not the broad civil rights, but fair housing, civil rights. And she said, well, fair housing is the law of the land, right? And we have to look at fair housing, right? We can't argue to just fix our heat and hot water. We have to start discussing the expectations that we have, especially under legislation that we have. These are our tools in this game. And so if we don't come out and say we've been violated, right, there is damage that was done to us, and we demonstrated that it had racial implications to it. Because I just showed you, I just gave us the track.
Yeah, you showed the map. You showed the map.
We showed the map. We already see the experience that we're having. We see how they're trying to transition. They're trying to separate us. Because remember, Section 9 is not being repealed. Section 9 is still in existence. Section 9 is still
Thank
being
you.
funded.
That's what
Section 9 is
that's
still
it
prominent.
in a nutshell. So if we transfer all to Section 8, where does this Section 9 funding go?
So
it just poof.
They're
disappear?
using this strategy to separate us from Section 9. Separate us from our rights. Once you're separated, you're
There's
done.
no going back.
See, that's the other thing. Once you're separated, they threw you off the cliff.
Because my thing is this, right? Look, Section 8 is not a stable transfer from 9 to 8. It's not stable. Because the same way the government ceased to stop funding Section 8 before, they can do it again. And if you, like, the blueprint in all of it is supposed, in essence, should be because of those staggered waiting lists on Section 8, there have been talk about how they can start pulling people off the list. But if people are already in their apartments, how are you pulling people off a list?
But now, all right, so just to be fair, Section 8, Section 9 hasn't been stable because it is funding that directly benefits us. It directly benefits the black community and directly benefits Hispanic communities.
Section
right?
9.
In public housing.
Section 9.
Section 9.
yeah.
Section
Okay.
9, right? That's funding that goes straight to us. Section 8 has more stability because there is a larger white population that utilizes Section 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now they're using that.
Huge.
They're saying we want to run to Section 8 because it's more stable. Now, if the demographic in NYCHA stays the same, and mind you, this is 2016 tabulation, so the demographics in NYCHA currently right now, if I did this right, I did 45%, 45.6% black, 44.4% Hispanic, right? So that's literally 90% of the population is black and Hispanic. So now, if Section 8 comes to this demographic, and this demographic doesn't fluctuate, doesn't change, then Section 8 will be unstable as well.
Absolutely. You're just flushing one system.
Redlining. Going back to redlining. Redlining has not been resolved. They say, we stopped doing redlining. Y'all stopped drawing the lines, right? When these racist when certain people when these racist white folks get a Crayola box, you see what they do, right? And they start drawing red lines around stuff. So they took the Crayola box away from them, but they still marked up the whole city, right? You still nobody's cleaning up the drawings that they put on the refrigerator that they did directly on the wall.
They still
nobody's
riding
cleaning
them
it up.
1980 trains with the graffiti on it. But
So-
if you want to bring it round full circle, I'm sorry we didn't talk about Seneca Village.
The last thing though,
No,
the
what are
real
you talking
quick
about?
though, the last thing I want us to know is because they playing us. This is how they playing us, right? So I got numbers here from the 2011 physical needs assessment and the 2017 physical needs assessment. So the
Physical needs is that the handicap?
The physical
No.
Not the handicap.
The physical needs assessment is
Is
the
the-
document that explains the deficiency, the
It's
number.
like a diagnosis
So
of
when
your
they say-
development.
So when they say $40 billion, right?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
When they say
Go ahead.
$40 billion in 20 years, $32.8 billion in 5 years, right? It's based off of this physical needs assessment,
It's a lie.
right? And so there's some things I want to bring to attention. So in the physical needs assessment, in the 2017 one, and I'm reading it straight from it, right? When it came to the apartments, now they did 100% of the buildings. You walk into a building, right? You did the lobby and the staircases, right? So you did 100% of the buildings, that's what they say. But when it comes to apartments, it says it right here. And I'm gonna read it verbatim. He says, unlike buildings, developments, and facilities, where 100% of the units within these categories were assessed, the apartment category was sampled. Approximately 20,000 apartments were actually assessed, 10 to 15% within each building, and the results extrapolated to the entire apartment portfolio. Extrapolated means that they spread it out. So that means if I have, just to do some quick math, if I have 1,000 units in my development, and you came in and we had to use the high number, 15% of that, so you only look at 150. So if you take the worst 150 apartments that's in my building, in my development, right, the worst, and now mind you, I have another 850 that weren't assessed, and so you're gonna say that this worst 150 apartments, this is how much every apartment looks like this worst 150 apartment.
Okay.
So you're gonna exaggerate
The number.
the number.
And they do that all the time.
I got a comparison here between 2011 and 2017 in the apartment assessment. Now, mind you, only 15%, 10 to 15% of the apartments. And so this is for 1010 East 178th Street development. And for the first year, apartment deficit in 2011 was 646,652. In 2017, for the first year, apartment deficiency, it was 12,487,754. That seems like a huge jump for 6 years.
Absolutely.
A huge
have
jump.
to
And I'm gonna run down a couple of more, right? So for 1162, and this was just the first 4 that I looked on the needs assessment just to show the pattern. Just to show the pattern. 445,000 in the deficiency in 2011, and for the same development, it was 4,639,000. 212,000 for the next development, and for that development, 131 St. Nicholas Avenue. Now the 2017 one says 5.8 million. Now you go from 212,000 to 5.8 million per apartment. I mean, not per apartment, for the entirety of the apartment, right? And the last one was 10414 Tapscott Street, which in the beginning in 2011 was 282,000, and then in 2017 is 1.9 million. So there seems to be that extrapolation, and the way that they did that assessment is concerning, right? It's concerning. I'm just demonstrating some concerns that we have. And so we have to start looking at that number and saying, is that the real number? Or y'all just trying to scare us into something? Y'all trying to scare us into a corner?
We have to question that $40 billion assessment. And I would advise.
And I'm going to bring this up right here. So I'm going to see if I can show this, if that says it here,
It's
right?
green.
So this, because it's green, so it's invisible. So I don't know if you can see it. So what it reads is in the
Green and
blueprint.
yellow's bad.
In the blueprint, they gave an example of 25,000 TPV, which is a tenant protection voucher, Section 8, would help them raise $3.4 billion. But if they already have Section 8 in public housing right now, and you have 38,000, almost 39,000 households right now that are 62 years and over and living alone, and Section 8 would not have an impact of change on them, like would not take away any of the rights except for maybe, and not even so, because even in Section 8 you have some metric of home ownership that can be accommodated, right? Why don't they just get Section 8 and start giving it to the people right now, and giving it to the people who may want it, who will not be affected, right? Who are not looking for access to Section 3, who are not looking at some of the other benefits that we have, without having to create a whole nother structure, a state structure and legislation that's going to separate us from our federal rights. We have to really pay attention to what's going on.
So there's something that I want to ask about, right? And I know we've gone over the hour, clearly. But the information has been so in-depth and dope that it was like, there's no reason to stop. You know what I'm saying? Like this whole thing is about the people, right? And the information that we give to the people, you know. And I'm a tourist, you know what I'm saying? I'm a tourist in the situation. I don't live in NYCHA. I never lived in NYCHA. But, you know, I come from a standpoint of absorbing the information that you're giving and learning, right? That's kind of what the point is for me. Because I'm like, all right, well, how does this work? Or how does that work? You know, I already know, you know, the problems in NYCHA. That's easy. That's surface. You can walk into a building and see the problems in the lobby. But to actually navigate the system, right, which is the next show we should do, really, that's what's important. You know, because if you can get me to navigate the system, then somebody that lives in NYCHA should be able to navigate the system. You know, and that's what I stand with. Now, I know we have a little hot button going on, Claudia. Claudia. What do you want to talk about Seneca Village? What's up with Seneca Village? I'm putting the slide up right now. Bomb! Go. What's up?
That's redlining, and it's a
Talk to me
fact.
about
And
it.
how I'm gonna let you know that it was decided that in order to build Central Park, because that's my backyard. Okay,
Yes,
in
yes,
order
it
to
is.
build Central Park, you had to be able to. They knocked down a whole village, and what Seneca Village is, it's a right now it's just a plaque.
Okay.
It's just a plaque that's left in.
Well, who lived there? Let's start there. Who lived in Seneca Village?
It was a black affluent community. You had churches, you had schools, you had.
What are you talking about? In the middle of Central Park?
So
In the
Seneca
middle of
Village, you
Central
had black
Park.
home, you had free blacks who were able to, because remember slavery was still going on at
So
that time.
what year are we talking? I'm sorry.
18. Oh,
What year are we talking? Is it on the screen?
So
I see the plaque at the bottom, but it's small.
okay, Seneca Village basically was a black town.
Okay.
How
In the
this
middle of
started-
Central Park?
There was no Central Park.
Ah, okay.
There was no Central
where
Park.
Central Park is now.
Where
It's
Central
where it is
Park
now.
it was, in order for Central Park to be built, they tore down a village called Seneca Village, which happened to be a prominent black historical town today. It should be a historical town. What it was back in those times, they weren't selling property to black people.
Okay.
So here it was, these white landowners who had property, and they actually were one of the very few that sold to black people. And so when, darn it, and I forgot her name, it was a lady. You know, in order for them to, this was really good because when you migrated from the South into New York City at that point in time, you weren't able to purchase property. You know, you came here for a better opportunity, but here it is. People were able to save up their money, and then they actually found landowners who happened to be on the Central Park area that was selling them land. The first set of lands, I do believe, was sold to a black female. They sold her shares of that land, acres of that land at like $75 for like 2 acres. And then you had another prominent black man who came along, and he purchased more land. Now with this property, they put up homes. It was shanties and, you know, other things, but it was a viable black community.
Listen, it wasn't no different than what was happening in the 5 Points.
No different.
Those were shanties and crappy places.
Okay,
So, all right.
so here it is. Now you have upscale being built around. You have people coming in who would look at this town and like, wait a minute, we think it should be free air and fresh space. How can we make sure that we get this fresh air and fresh space through this
Village.
Seneca Village? So that's where eminent domain comes into play.
Right.
So eminent domain, it means that they will destroy things that are already there and for the betterment of the community. So due to the fact the surrounding community around Seneca Village was predominantly people of upper scale, I'm gonna just say it white.
Yeah, white people.
Okay,
What are you
it
talking
was a
about?
bunch of white people.
I don't be trying to
I'm trying to
sugarcoat
be
nothing.
politically correct.
No,
you
no,
know.
no. Listen, are they white people or not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's
So
no politically
basically-
correct. They white. All right.
Yeah, so through eminent domain, that's how they were able to level through this whole aspiring village that had churches, you had barbers, you had prominent black people who were up and coming that was just displaced. They were ran through eminent domain because for the greater good of the community, Central Park is actually built. And they actually did have burial grounds there.
Okay.
They had a burial grounds there. It's really you should really go and look it up. It's really, really interesting.
Well, what's interesting about that is you said something that was really important, and that was eminent domain.
Yeah.
Right? In eminent domain, if you guys don't understand what that was the sword of Robert Moses.
Absolutely.
Robert Moses.
That's exactly how.
It was eminent domain, right? Because
it was created. Actually, Robert Moses. It was created because of Robert Moses.
All right.
Eminent domain.
The actual thing.
What was the name of that crew? The one that did the housing. The one that you said it earlier.
Levittown? No, not Levittown.
The people who worked with Moses in creating Moses was more for the roads and the bridges and the tunnels, and they did NYCHA. They urban renewal. I know what I'm.
Oh wait! You know Cynthia is in the chat room. Cynthia, what's up, girl? Wow! I'm so glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Hey, Cynthia.
Word up. She's like Seneca Village stretched from 82nd to 89th Street, where Central Park currently is. That's what she's saying right there.
And they leveled it to start it.
Carmen Kiona says, Carmen always active. She's like, damn, okay. Robert Moses made this possible, 100%. Robin Walker says Columbia University wanted to tear down the Manhattanville projects in Harlem based on eminent domain.
Yes.
The tennis fought and I'm saying they won.
Rare.
I guess.
Yeah.
They won. I mean, that eminent domain, right, is how the Cross Bronx Expressway was built. Right? There were neighborhoods that Robert Moses had to cut through to create the Cross Bronx. The same thing for the LIE. When you talk to old timers, that's why I like to. They'll tell you about the neighborhoods that were there before the LIE was there. Like they mowed down houses because of eminent domain.
Well, remember, eminent domain is legislation.
Right.
Right. Eminent domain is policy. It's written down. It's they ratified it in law, and so that's to show you how powerful policy can be. And that's also to get you to start reimagining what it would look like if we started writing policies for ourselves. And this has to be the reason. This is the reason why we engage in politics. It's not to get a person elected, it's to get policy ratified. And this is what they do to us, and that's why they run circles around us. And that doesn't mean that we don't have the opportunity to jump in the game now and take it over. I will say this: it is affecting our lives, but it is a game. And we're talking about writing the rules of the game, and that needs to be our focus. Now, I do want to. I think that we're closing out right now.
Now we're gonna.
So I would like
We
to.
got an hour and a half. Go ahead.
I would like to on close for my closing remarks. I would like to bring up that article with the boycott with the white ladies, the 15,000, the 15,000 whites.
You want that
protesting, white, right? So this
guy?
one,
Okay.
yeah. So we're gonna start with that one because then there's the next one because I want you to bring it to the document today. So on the left side, that's back in 1964. Now mind you, that's going on 57 years, and then you have this white lady saying that she got civil rights, she wants segregation. On the right side here, we're fast forwarding this now to I think that's 2019, 2020. So this is back here in Queens, right? District 28,
Forest
school.
Hills.
Well, that's the Forest Hills Post.
Okay.
Right? But the chancellor recently wanted to bring busing into the district to integrate the system. And then we had a protest. And that's speaking to a protest that happened, right? And then in that protest, now mind you, the next slide with the signatures. So you have the people who are starting, they came out to Jamaica, Queens, to the black area where they was having a town hall saying, y'all need to fix this, we don't want no busing. Now this is 57 years later that we had the largest civil rights protest in New York City that was thwarted by that march, and now here we go again with the same fight. And now this is a signature to a letter in which you have the politicians that's representing these communities of the white folks who don't want the busing to come back in, saying that we need to reassess this program of busing or how you're doing it. This is going to the chancellor. And then I want to note that Which one is it? Where's her name? Oh, that ain't the. Oh.
That's not it.
Oh, that ain't it. No. Oh wow.
Put your
There you
glasses
go.
on.
So the second one, yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. I just got some reading glasses, and I keep forgetting them. I don't like reading glasses.
Second name?
The second name. So now
Down on the left-hand side.
all of these other representatives are white representatives representing white, predominantly white neighborhoods, and then that's my council member on that signing that letter, right? That represents our neighborhood, and we have the third most segregated school district in the country, and she's signing on. We really have to worry about who we are electing. We have to pay attention to who we are electing, and we have to know we can't just vote them in and sit and spectate. Politics is not a spectator sport.
It's a policy sport.
What did
It's
I say about that?
legislation.
I know you had a lot to say about that. That picture is up right there. You want to do that?
That's a perfect segue.
Listen,
Let's
let's
do it.
bring it.
No. Wait. Before you transition it.
Bring it.
You sure?
Bring it. Bring it. It's going to come anyway.
I'm bringing it. Boom. What is this? What are we talking about?
Well, it's very unfortunate, but we have Bill Perkins, who is a city council member, and he is from the 9th City Council District, and supposedly, well, no, it's been documented that he is suffering from some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's, and he still holds elected office. Now, Bill Perkins is somebody who has fought for us. He's like a Harlem hero. So I'm very careful in what I'm saying because I don't want it to be misinterpreted as taking advantage of him or speaking to something I don't know of. Now, I do not know of what his diagnosis is, but I will say he is someone who is running again for re-election, and that is very scary to me because we talk about these elected officials and we vote for them off of name recognition, but I really need you to know and understand and ask yourself, what legislation or what policy has this person pushed for the movement? A lot of us, again, a lot of us are like, I like the guy, but if he lived in my district, I'm gonna be honest, I would not vote for him again because I do not think that.
Well,
that
is he
the
sick? Right? You're saying he's sick right now.
He is, and in the article it
it's
says
all right.
that he's sick. You
Okay.
know, so what
If that's true, then that's
capacity,
okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I will just say that's why we have to start vetting who we're voting for. Don't just go for that name recognition because you know what? It is sad that when you see someone as recognized and as powerful as him, I don't even know what they're doing, but I just feel that his time has come. I really do.
How old is Bill?
Oh,
He's old.
Yeah.
He's up there. I will
I'm
say
just
that.
kinda-
I'm
just
not
kinda
going to say
curious.
old because I don't want to do, but yeah, he's up there. And it's just sad to see that, you know, this is going on and people want to talk about it. Some people don't want to talk about it. The political atmosphere is just disgusting. You know, when you have people who are influencing instead of talking realistically. And that just shows that, you know, people have their own hidden agendas and they have their own perspectives and where they want us to go. So, and most of them are in the pockets of the developers. So I'm just going to end it with that.
That's cool.
I'm going to say a prayer for Perkins and everybody else that is running because these races are nasty. Political races are really, really, really nasty. And they can take you they can project something that you really think you are going to vote for and that you do believe in. And then when they get into office, it's a totally different story. And this is the song that we've been singing. So I want to put everybody on duty to go and do some research and start dropping lines to us of things that you want to hear about. This goes out to the viewership. If you know that there's things that you want us to talk about, drop it in the line. Drop it in the chat room. Let us know. If it's things that you need research on it, let us know. We want to bring it to the show. This is an organizing show. This is for us coming together and having those conversations. And like my brother Manny said, we're going to create legislation and policy, and that's what this is about. If we don't know the answer, we are going to get the answer. And we can only get the answer if we do it together. We are one nature, mi gente, my people. God bless.
Mi gente, my people. Mi gente, my